I am an American veteran.
I proudly served my country.
I live the values I learned in the military.
I continue to serve my community, my country, and my fellow veterans.
I maintain my physical and mental discipline.
I continue to lead and improve.
I make a difference.
I honor and remember my fallen comrades.
We are the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Smith-Wynn Post 96, proudly serving Montgomery, Alabama, continuously since 1921.
Carr. I'm Commander of Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 96 here in Montgomery, Alabama. And we have started doing a series of videos where we spotlight veterans in the local community. And we have here with us tonight Rear Admiral W. Kent Davis and his lovely wife, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Davis. Rear Admiral Davis is a member of our post, Post 96. And has been an integral part of providing us information every month as to what's going on with Veterans Affairs at the national level and the state level. And we're so fortunate and thankful to have him as a member of our post. And of course, behind every good man is a good lady. And Lieutenant Commander Lisa Davis has been that lady for Rear Admiral Davis, and we are so thankful to have both of you and grateful to have both of you with us tonight.
Robert, it's great to be with you. First of all, call us Kent and Lisa.
Very well.
Can we
Call me
call you
Robert.
Robert?
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely. We'll drop all titles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So what we're gathering together to do is just basically find out about you and Lisa, and find out, I'll just ask some general questions and just expand as much as you would like to. Yeah. Or if it's a topic that don't want to discuss, just say next question. All right. Personal background. Can you share a little bit about your backgrounds before joining the military?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start just because I'm the older one. I was actually born right here in Montgomery, Alabama, in St. Margaret's Hospital. I grew up here as a little kid. My grandparents lived over on Thomas Avenue, and I grew up as a little kid in the McGee Estates area. And then my dad, who was a World War II combat wounded veteran, but by then he was in the insurance business, he got transferred. So I ended up growing up here in Montgomery and then in Atlanta, and then right before high school he got transferred to New Orleans. So spent high school in New Orleans, and that's how I ended up at LSU. I'm sure that's not a popular thing to say here in Alabama, but people ask me, why did you go to LSU? It's because I went to high school in New Orleans.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Lisa?
I am from California originally. My father was a Methodist minister, so we moved about every 6 years or so. Ended up going to Long Beach State for my undergraduate in liberal arts with a concentration in English literature, and then my teaching credential for a 5th year, and then a 6th year special education credential.
Right.
And then we married, and later on I got a master's degree in special education.
Fantastic, fantastic. So the next thing would be, okay, with these careers and what you had going on, what brought you to the military? What made that turning point, which said, I'm gonna serve our country?
So I joined up first, so I'll go first. I mentioned my dad was a combat wounded World War II Army veteran. He had actually been a student at Auburn and got drafted in 1942, I believe, in World War II, and then got wounded in the cleanup operations for the Battle of the Bulge. That's important because I always grew up with a respect for him and the sacrifices he had made. And the man, despite being wounded, never complained, was proud of his service. And then literally one day in 1985, I saw a recruiting poster for the U.S. Navy, kind of like this one. And I went home and I talked to my dad and I said, Dad, I saw a poster and it invited people to talk to a recruiter. And I thought, well, he'd been an enlisted man in the Army and this was for an officer recruiter in the Navy. I didn't know how he'd react to that. He was very supportive. He said, I think you ought to talk to him. And I went and talked to that recruiter and the rest is history.
Fantastic. Lisa, how about you?
I joined the reserves after Kent and I were married. I saw what he was doing and I thought, well, looks like fun. Be interesting, see the world. So I was a weekend warrior, so I still taught during the week, and then on the weekends I would go and do my military drills.
Much like I did.
Yep.
I was weekend warrior all the time. So of course you met before you started your military careers, but how did your relationship evolve over the time you were serving in the military?
Actually, Robert, we met because of my military service. I was in my first operational assignment. Went through all of the training required for, almost a year. And then I got assigned to a ship, the USS Missouri. Got a battle there, and a famous battleship, and it was stationed in Long Beach, California. And it just so happened that there was a church right down the street from an apartment that I had there. I lived partially on the ship, especially at sea, obviously, and then I had an apartment with a roommate. But there was a church right down the street, and it happened to be Easter time, and there was a big banner out in front of the church that said, "Visitors welcome for Easter." And I went and met my future wife. I met my father-in-law, my future father-in-law first. Not real easy dating your minister's daughter, but we started dating because I just met her in church in Long Beach, California, in my first Navy assignment.
Fantastic, fantastic. So how did you see him at church one day and just go up and talk to him, or did he pursue you or you pursued him?
It actually, he went the first time, and I was out doing a scuba dive for I had a scuba diving class, so I was doing testing for that, and all the young adults were at a retreat, and so my dad told them, please come back. The young adults are at a retreat, they'll be here. So he came back the next week, and we went to lunch as a group, and he drove in the car with me. And
it's where it all started.
It is.
Just the magic happened at that time.
Yeah.
I gotta say one thing though. I knew it was bound to work out because after we first started dating, very quickly, I went on a 6-month deployment and I thought, I'll never see her again. But that didn't happen.
No.
Great, great. Well, of course, we've already discussed the branches of military, that both of you were in the Navy. And while you were in the military, what were your roles in the military? Of course, it all changes from beginning to end, but
mine doesn't.
Yeah, why don't you go first?
I came in as a general unrestricted line officer, just kind of a jack of all trades, and then they did away with that. So I had to pick another designator, so I went into intelligence, and that's what I did my full career.
all right.
Mm-hmm.
My military career is much more bizarre. So believe it or not, I was actually in the Army too. I started out for a short time in the Navy Reserve as an enlisted man, and then when I graduated from college, I got selected for officer candidate school, and I went on 8 years of active duty, most of which was on sea duty. I was on a battleship and then an aircraft carrier. And then this is one of the great benefits of military service. I got out and used the GI Bill to go back to school. I went to law school and got a law degree. And I stayed in the reserve. And when I got my law degree, I got recruited by the Army to come back on active duty. And I did. I did one tour in the Army as an Army Judge Advocate General's Corps officer. Loved it. Got off of active duty again with the Army, became a civilian attorney, and I went back to the Navy Reserve. The main reason was I completed all of my training in the Navy, and it was probably going to be better for promotion purposes if I went back to the Navy Reserve. So I did, and stayed in the Navy Reserve. But then 9/11 occurred, and I got deployed a lot, and I stuck with it and ended up staying for a total of almost 31 years active in the reserve.
Fantastic, fantastic. And that hits on another question I had here about significant moments or challenges with service that shaped who you are today. Obviously, 9/11 was a big part of that. Lisa, was there anything that intelligence-wise or that may have shaped where the person you became or are today?
You're talking about 9/11, your deployment.
9/11 happened. I was called up, and I went to NATO and spent time there, and just seeing what was going on. I did mainly country studies, so I was getting more in depth into, how other countries were looking at us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that's how it changed me a little bit. I became more aware.
I think 9/11 profoundly affected both of us. Strangely, I did not get deployed right after 9/11. She did.
I did.
And we had a little daughter who was, how old was Olivia? About 18 months old at the time. So I became a Mr. Mom. And I'm telling you, I had a newfound appreciation for what military families deal with their loved one being deployed, because our roles switched completely.
Absolutely. My wife became the person that had to call the plumber, call the electric, call the cable company anytime something was wrong.
Yeah.
And it was so those roles, whether it be the man that's deployed or the woman that's deployed, it leaves a responsibility that we're not accustomed to dealing with when we change roles.
Right.
Yeah, Robert, I've always said some of the toughest jobs in the military are military family members. It's not just spouses, it's the kids too. We both learned that. When we had kids, we had to sign a guardianship agreement, a family care plan, and I had to get my brother and his wife to agree to take guardianship of our kids if both of us got called up at the same time. Luckily, that didn't happen, but we were prepared for that.
That's good. And it's a thing that military families today have to deal with, especially when you have dual. Husband and wife are both in service, and that's required. Military requires those things, that you have to have those plans in place if the unfortunate happens. And that relates to how serving in the military influenced your perspective on life and relationships and values, much of what you've already talked about. Were there times when your military duties overlapped or impacted each other's responsibilities? I guess sort of like with the change in roles when Lisa was deployed and you had to take over responsibilities. But were there any things operational wise or military wise where you crossed paths?
One time.
There was one time. I want to tell the story. We actually served together one time.
Kent was on staff for the commissioning of the Bonhomme Richard.
New Navy amphib
Yes, down in Florida. So he was busy doing that. My unit back in Atlanta said, is there anybody who would like to volunteer to go help support doing that? And I'm like, I'll go.
We weren't in the same chain
No, we weren't in the same chain of command.
No conflict of
So
interest.
he did public affairs, I did intel stuff. But that's the only time we were able to serve together, and we have one picture for that.
All right, fantastic. So, shared experiences as veterans. How has being a veteran influenced your relationship as a couple?
Well, first of all, the skills that you learn in the military, I think, are just invaluable. You learn time management, you learn to balance your life, especially if you're a reservist or a National Guardsman. You gotta learn how to balance your civilian job and your military service and your family. That is a tough juggling act. But I think when you learn those skills, you start to appreciate, not only for yourself, but those who serve with you, the importance of family first. You've gotta take care of your family and focus on them and make sure they understand your obligations and that you're taking care of them. Because I used to tell my sailors and soldiers, if you're worried about your family and their well-being, you're not going to be able to perform your job very well. And I always try to focus on that. And even in civilian jobs, I've tried to focus on that. I do think I did five extended combat zone deployments. And every time I came back, I think I had an appreciation for not only life here in the United States, but the value of family and our relationships and how important that was to me. Because you're deployed to places like Afghanistan and Somalia and on a ship in the Persian Gulf, you really miss your family and you start to appreciate them a lot.
Absolutely. Especially when you see what other families in other countries have to go through just to be a family.
Oh yeah, you probably saw that in your deployment, and when I was deployed, you probably had an appreciation of it's important to stay together as a family and support each other.
Yes. And the kids were also, excuse me, understanding, if he had to miss a soccer game or a ballet recital.
Oh, yes.
They understood that Daddy was out there trying to keep them safe.
And so what unique opportunities or experiences did being in the military or as a military couple provide? What were some unique experiences that you got to have as a couple together in the military?
Well, not as a couple. My deployments or my active duty times were nothing like his. And he got Afghanistan and Somalia. I got Garmisch, Germany, and Rhoda, Spain.
No less important.
In England.
She was doing intel work.
Yeah.
My uncle, one of my uncles that was in World War II, I had an uncle that was infantry, went through France, another uncle that was in England, both in the Army. He was a logistics person. And when we would get together at family, he never really told stories about anything with the war. He thought his service was less honorable or less, but my other uncle told him, he says, I don't know that any Jeep or any ammo or any weapon that you directly had something to do with getting to me, but if it was not for you, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Right.
So every job in the military is important. And so, intelligence, providing the troops in the field what they need. So it's he may have been out there toting a gun, but he couldn't do it without knowing what was over the hill or what was over the horizon, and he provided that.
Robert, that's absolutely correct. And I hear veterans say, well, I didn't really do anything important in the military. I don't deserve veterans benefits. And I say, no, stop that. You served proudly. You played a vital role, and everybody's a part of that team. No matter what you're doing, it requires everybody doing their specialty to the best of their ability to make the entire machine work properly. And I always appreciated, whether it was Afghanistan or at sea, that there were plenty of people who had our backs that made our job a lot easier. I will say, we both got to see the world, just not together.
Not yet.
We served all over the world separately.
Well, shared experiences, veterans. One topic I want to touch on. Both of you have shared different types of battles together. And one of those battles was with cancer. And would you say your military training aided you to help both of you beat the dreaded C diagnosis? And can you elaborate on how that helped you?
I was first. I was diagnosed in 2017, December, with stage 2 breast cancer. started treatments in 2018. And I think being in the military, you know, you just have the attitude of never give up. So every little step you made in the right direction was celebrated. And you know, we tried to put laughter into it. I mean, I was laughed when I lost my hair and went and had my head shaved. You know, most people are, you know, boo-hooing, and even my hairdresser was like, it's going to be hard. And I'm like, yeah, just do it. It's better than coming out in clumps in my hand. Just tried to find the silver lining in everything that we went through with that. And, I mean, Kent was a rock, as well as our kids, in getting me through that.
Yeah, and then it was my turn. So, gosh, I guess about a year after you went through your cancer battle, I had my first of 2 cancer battles. So I went in for some routine tests in 2019 and was told that I had prostate cancer, which is very common in men, especially male veterans for some reason. I think because of a lot of the exposures that we had in the military. I thought, wow, well, we've jointly been through this battle before. My first battle with cancer was a little different because mine was just surgery I had to endure, whereas Lisa had to go through surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. I'd seen all of that. Yeah, so she had a much longer battle, but then I got my share in 2023, not too long ago. Went in for more routine tests. I found a lump in my neck one day and was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma and had to start chemotherapy immediately, so I lost all my hair. And again, we tried to make light of it and posted a picture of me dressed up as Mr. Clean with a gold earring.
That was a classic. Now, you don't know how much at the Post we enjoyed that. It was and it communicates at the same time how you're successfully dealing with that, and I think it's a testament to what other people with diagnosis need to see.
Yeah, we got through it fine. I mean, it was not fun, obviously, but you know, in the military they teach you the old phrase, adapt and overcome. And that's exactly what we did. We took that attitude of the military taught us, you deal with the situation, you adapt and overcome, and it really, that philosophy helped us a lot. We were very open with all of our battles with cancer, and one reason there's still a stigma with our brothers and sisters. You know, sometimes military veterans, they don't like to go to the doctor, they don't like to get tested, they don't like to do follow-up treatment, and we try to stress it's okay. Especially some of us stubborn, older male veterans, you need to go to the doctor. You need to get regular checkups. You need to follow your doctor's advice. And for goodness sake, you need to do your follow-up care. It could literally save your life, all of those measures. So we've always been very open and tried to encourage our fellow veterans. Go see a doctor when you suspect anything.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, transitioning. Going from military life to civilian life. What was it like transitioning from the military to civilian, both individually and as a couple, for some of the battles or stresses that you had?
My transitions were very different, but the one that I had when I was called up after 9/11, we had our daughter. I had been her sole provider, you know, mommy was home with her. So I was gone, and there was no Skype or FaceTime or anything back then. So, you know, out of sight, out of mind. So when I came back, he was at the airport with her, and I came up and I gave him a hug and I gave her a hug, and she was just like, "Who are you?" Like she had just completely forgotten who I was. And then about, I don't know, an hour later, you know, it all clicked that, oh, this is mommy. And then for the next several days, she would scream out if she couldn't see me because she thought I had left again. So I mean, that was my biggest transition, was with an 18-month-old.
Absolutely. And heartbreaking when you came back.
Yes.
I mean,
you know, because you miss them.
And of course, I saw the same thing, not to that extent, but, you know, I go on 6-month deployments. I went to Afghanistan for 7 months, and my kids were, I think, 10 and 12 at the time, and I missed so much of their lives, and soccer games, and birthdays. That's tough. And then when you come back, there is an adjustment period. And I don't think civilians can understand that sometimes, especially if you deploy to a combat zone. It's not just you get off a plane and put on civilian clothes and everything's normal. There is a transition that's tough for people to understand sometimes.
Yeah.
And it leads to that topic of, I think we all need to be a little more attuned to veterans' mental health issues and be a little more accommodating and understanding of those transition issues. They can be tough.
'Cause you never know. I mean, it can literally be a week before that time, the veteran was getting shot at and returning fire, or may have, you know, had to kill an enemy soldier, combatant, and then a week later he's back home.
Yeah.
He or she is back home, and that's a tough transition.
Yeah, I always say the war does not end when the shooting stops. And boy, that is true. For some veterans, that war continues up here for a long time.
But then for the family members, we were talking about this earlier, me having to give up control, and I don't mean that in a subservient way, but when he's gone, I have to do everything. And, you know, pick kids up, make sure everybody's where they need to be.
Pay the bills.
You know, and so when he came back, he would be like, well, what can I do? And it was hard for me to say, well, can you go do this? Because sometimes you're just thinking, oh, it's just easier if I do it myself. So learning how to
Be a couple of you.
yes, just share responsibilities instead of just one person doing it.
Yeah, and I saw that when she deployed. It was a strange transition when she came back. Suddenly, oh, mom is back and can help take care of our daughter and pick her up from daycare and prepare meals. It was nice, but it was a tough transition.
And at that transition, I'm guessing when you're deployed, you're more or less possibly getting to eat from the chow hall or something. So somebody's preparing
Yes.
that for you. Then when you come back,
I have to
you've
cook
got to
again.
change roles
Yes.
again, and now you're the preparer. And then I can imagine, like with my wife, when I came back, and it was like I was like, hey, what are we having for dinner? Kitchen's in there. You know how to cook. You know, you could go in there and cook. I said, okay, thank you. Well, I remember when I came back from my deployment to the first time, and my wife tells me, I got a surprise for you. And I said, okay. So we get off the plane. On the way home, I'm like, what's the surprise? I've arranged, we're going to the beach for a week. And I'm like, really? I just spent all the time in the sand. I don't care. And literally, we went to the beach for a week. I never stepped foot on the beach.
Oh, wow.
I sat on the balcony. I was tired of eating sand in my food and all of that. So it is a transition to go through.
Yeah, and Robert, I will tell you one great experience we had. When I came back from Afghanistan in late 2012, we were invited by Wounded Warrior Project to a couples retreat for those returning from combat zone deployments. And it was wonderful. I was a little skeptical. I thought, oh great, this is going to be one of those touchy-feely things. And I walked away saying that was really a nice experience. We were very grateful for it. And just meeting the other couples and hearing their stories and talking to them and bonding with all of them was just a wonderful experience. So I'm proud that DoD has started sponsoring a lot of programs like that, formal transition programs. I think they really help.
Absolutely. Well, with that transition, are there any aspects of the military that you miss or you don't miss?
Don't miss the deployments. Miss the camaraderie with our sailors. I mean, that was always, they're good people.
Yeah, you make friendships and, like you said, camaraderie and bonding like nowhere else. You know, I have friends that I made 40 years ago that I still stay in touch with, that I feel like are still my best friends, that I could share just about anything with, because there is that bonding experience through military service that you might face in like police work or other first responder firefighting work, but I think in the military it's unmatched, that camaraderie and bonding experience, and sometimes we do miss that. Of course, we stay in touch with the veteran community, and that's pretty close.
Oh, yes.
When you have veterans that you share it with through VFW, it's just great to get together with them and swap war stories and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about shared experiences. So I think we probably do miss that a little bit.
Do you find that being intelligence, do you find that when you get out in civilian environments, that you tend to apply some of that process to where you are and what's going on?
Yeah.
And, you know,
yes.
I walk into a restaurant, the first thing I look for is the exit and the fire extinguisher.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking for.
Back against the wall.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, sometimes I get, frustrated is not the right word, but you get used to what I call military efficiency and doing things, and you get in the civilian world, and sometimes you find yourself thinking, why are they doing it that way? That's so inefficient. You know, you learn in the military there's a much more efficient way of doing things sometimes, and the teamwork that you appreciate that sometimes you don't see.
Absolutely. Well, family relationships, we've touched on several things involving that. But did service in the military, when you were planning family or planning for the future, what type of process did you have to go through in planning for that? Because, like I say, you deployed, you were away from your daughter for time. So did that impact thinking of having more children or something like that, where say, well, I don't want to do that again, or
No, I mean, not for me.
We were,
We
well,
had our second child shortly after I came back.
yeah, but maybe a little bit. We were late in having kids.
We
had
were.
been married 11 years before we had our daughter, and
Because
part of
he-
that
he
was I was
deploying.
deploying all the time when I was on active duty. So there was a little bit of thought, gosh, you know, is it fair to start having kids and then I'm going out to sea for 6 to 9 months or something like that. So there was a little thought process there. I do think military service strangely strengthened us as a family, because our kids grew up understanding that there were sacrifices that needed to be made, both for country, for family, and they've grown up with that philosophy. We learned that there had to be a balancing act and sacrifices for country and each other.
Okay. And I think we already touched on this about experiences, military experiences teach you specific skills that helped you strengthen your relationship. And I think we touched on that a lot, especially with dealing with cancer and with family. How did you ensure that your military service didn't overshadow other aspects of your life when you were both going through as a couple together?
Well, I'll start. Please jump in, because we always talked about the balancing act. And I even talked to my military bosses and my sailors and soldiers about it is vitally important that you find that balancing act. And I'll always support that. You've got to balance your family life with your military service. And then, you know, as I mentioned before, if you're a reservist and a guardsman, you got 3 things you got to balance: your civilian job, your military service, and your family. That's really tough. It takes communication, even with your kids, even when they're little. You sit down with them and explain, you know, I've got to go away for 6 months. And you understand that. And, you know, you tell your son, you've got to be the big man in the family and do these things, like help cut the grass and things like that. And everybody just kind of pulls together when you have that communication.
That's good.
But did you, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I think we communicated
We
that,
did.
and we talked
We did,
very freely about what our military obligations
yes.
meant.
All right. So reflection and advice. What advice would you give other couples in the military or in veteran communities that are dual service, or have one member in the military? What would you
Well,
give them as advice to get through the process?
for the dual couple, things are easier now, I believe. When I first started thinking about joining, I thought, well, I'll go on active duty. I'd like to learn how to fly helicopters. So I went and talked to the recruiter, and I explained to him, well, my husband is on active duty. Can I get an assurance that we'll be in the same area? And he looked at me and he said, I can't even guarantee you'll be on the same continent. And I thought, okay. So obviously I didn't go active duty, but now I feel the military tries to keep the dual couple together as much as possible.
They can't always do it.
No,
I mean,
not
we
always,
understand
but
military necessity.
It's better than it was 25 years ago.
All right.
I think in general, the support of the military for families has gotten a lot better over the last few decades. I think 9/11 and all of the deployments that flowed from 9/11 really kind of reinforced the idea that you can't just think about the service member. We got to have family care programs that look at the whole family. And I salute DoD for getting much better in that regard.
Yeah, that was a big when I was deployed. We had the family readiness at the base, and so there was a chain, or at least a line of communication that family felt, I've got someone at the base I can contact in an emergency, and they know how the process to take to get in touch with the veteran overseas. If you could change one thing about your military experience or journey as a veteran couple, what would it be?
I can think of one thing. When I came back from deployment to Afghanistan, I was a reservist at the time, and I didn't give myself enough time to make the transition. I jumped back into my civilian job way too quickly. I should have, and the law supports that. A law allows you to take time off when you come back from an extended deployment as a reservist or a guardsman. I didn't do that. That was a mistake.
I think you went back like 2 weeks.
Oh
after
yeah, I
you
think
came
even
out.
less than that. My civilian job was saying, you've been gone a long time, we need you back. And I said, okay, I'll go back too quickly. And in the end, I think it caused a little burnout with me. It made my transition much tougher. Didn't spend enough time with family. We got through it eventually. As a result of that, partially, I ended up leaving that civilian job because I felt like I didn't make the transition back well, and I'm not sure my civilian employer appreciated my military service, and I needed some time off when I came back. So I would have done that differently, and I've encouraged people, if you come back from a tough deployment, you need some downtime. You need the time to reinvigorate your family relationships and spend time with them. And I made that mistake, I'll admit.
Makes it. Anything on your side you would change?
No. I mean, not for my military career, no.
Okay. All right. Well, we get to some broader perspectives. How do you feel the military, we touched on this a little bit a moment ago, but how do you feel the military has evolved in supporting dual couple veterans?
Thinking more of, let's try to keep them together as much as possible, at least in the same region. Maybe not the same base, but thinking more that, maybe we do need to support the family unit.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think there has been a big improvement in that area. And when I first joined the Navy, almost 40 years ago, we used to joke, and it was only partially a joke, that if the Navy wanted you to have a family, they would have issued it to you. But that philosophy has changed a lot, and I think if you said that today, you're hopefully your commanding officer would say, I never want to hear you say that again.
Absolutely, yes.
And your NCOs and chief petty officers in the Navy, I think, probably have a much better attitude towards, we need to support family life and make sure we keep those families together, because again, somebody can't focus on their military job if they're worried about their family, what's going on back there.
Absolutely, absolutely. What role do you think veteran communities play in your lives now, in both of your lives now?
We do a lot with the veterans. I am involved in a officer wives club, and get involved there. We've done Operation Iron Rock, Wreaths Across America. What else?
We try when we can. I'm involved in, obviously, VFW, but several other veteran service organizations. Part of it's a little selfish. I just love the camaraderie, but it's important to maintain those ties. It's important that we support each other as veterans. As a dual service couple, it's nice to have that perspective. I try to be attuned, especially to women veterans and their issues, and I hear from Lisa, that's the experiences she had. And, you know, I worked in Veterans Affairs for several years, and I think being a dual service couple helped me understanding our various populations of veterans. It is important that we stick together. Nobody understands a veteran like a fellow veteran does. And sometimes a veteran will talk to another veteran before they'll talk to their spouse or their clergy or someone like that. And when we talk about some of the more difficult issues that veterans face, mental health issues, my gosh, some of the really dire issues like veteran suicides, it's really important that we stick together as a veteran community and talk to each other and support each other.
Absolutely. It's, and what you say exactly, with what I do now, I hear the stories, and so many times that when they come into veteran service organizations, VFW, American Legion, DAV, Marine Corps League, on and on, they will talk to each other about issues that they would never discuss with their spouse.
Yeah.
And it's an important group to be involved with. With that, how can society do a better job supporting veterans, especially those that are in veteran-to-veteran relationships?
You want to start?
No.
Because I can, look, I've been pretty vocal about this. My worry is, as we get further removed from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and 9/11, Desert Storm, and even Vietnam, I worry that the American public and especially our elected officials start to forget about the sacrifices. And we're obviously biased because we serve and we think veterans should be taken care of. But I do see that interest in taking care of veterans waning a bit. And it's tough to make taking care of veterans a priority. And it needs to be, because we're starting to see some of the dire after effects of military service, especially those who served in combat zones in Iraq and Afghanistan. We're seeing physical issues that we never saw before, from toxic exposures, repeated exposure to artillery fire and small arms fire, that we're seeing long-term physical impacts that we didn't realize. More importantly, I think we're starting to see those invisible wounds of war, the mental issues that sometimes don't manifest themselves for years. And it concerns me that we're not putting enough emphasis on those issues, that we're forgetting about those veterans. Again, I say wars do not end when the shooting stops. You've got to take care of those veterans, sometimes for years afterwards. Let's face it, we're still taking care of World War II veterans as a result of their service. We can't forget about that. And I do worry it's slipping away, that public and elected official concern.
As I feel the same. Lisa, do you think society could do a better job in supporting women that are veterans that have families, that have just special single female veteran that is trying to raise a family and serve.
Yes, I do. You know, and a lot of times the single women who have children may not have a family member who can take care of their children. I'm not saying that that's government's job to do that, but I do think there need to be things put in place as a safety net.
That helps with, I guess, child care.
Yes.
Child care, money to help with child care within their
Yes.
within their pay when those situations come up, and so you know, I think there's probably ways that DoD and some of the agencies can help
Yes.
veterans in even better than they do now.
I think women veterans can help other women
They
veterans
can.
as well,
Yes.
because they understand each other.
Been there, done that.
Well, just kind of in closing here, are there any untold stories or moments you'd like to share from your military journey?
That's you.
Well, you got your one from Garmisch, Germany. That was kind of amusing, but when I look back, there was one funny episode. So, and this followed me throughout my career. In 1989, when I was on my first ship, it was announced that Cher was going to do a music video on the ship, and she did it. I happened to be the officer of the deck of the ship when that was going on, so I was in charge of basically everything that was going on. It turned out to be a very controversial video that she did. It was really controversial because, well, her video was pretty risque, and there was a lot of flack over that. And people joked throughout my career that, oh, he was one of the ones that was in the Cher music video and his career survived that. So funny story, when I retired in 2016, I don't know how they pulled this off. They got Cher to do a virtual video appearance at my retirement ceremony.
Oh, goodness.
She did a video greeting at my retirement ceremony. Nobody could believe it. There was Cher on the big screen giving me a greeting from my retirement and saying, and the name of her video was If I Could Turn Back Time. So she did this video tribute at my retirement. She said, Admiral Davis, I'm just wishing you fair winds and following seas on your retirement. She said, if we could both turn back time. I almost got a tear when I heard that. And she gave a few more comments, so that was kind of a funny ending to my Navy career.
Absolutely. Memorable. Very memorable.
Lisa had one that was kind of amusing.
I was assigned to the Marshall Center in Garmisch, Germany, and that's where they teach, at that time, ex-Soviet bloc people how to run their country. So I was actually working in the public affairs office, which was kind of funny. So I was given this adorable little Yugoslavian man, spoke no English. He spoke Yugoslav and German. And so I escorted him to his interview, everywhere, but to his interviews. And I was supposed to, you know, let them know if those questions weren't appropriate or whatnot. Well, the sad thing is the interview was in German and I don't speak German. So I couldn't tell you if it was appropriate or not, but he would just sit there and pat my knee and smile. So.
Yeah, I had similar when I was deployed to Argentina. You know, the government U.S. supported Britain in the Falkland Islands War, and so they tasked the 187th, the unit I was in, to go down as an icebreaker to reintegrate the Argentine military in relationships with the U.S. military. And so they promised us we would all have DoD interpreters, and that don't try to speak the Spanish that you learned in school, because they have very vast different meanings. And so I had to explain AIM-9 missile system, the cooling system and everything to my counterpart, and they didn't assign a DoD interpreter with me. And I remember, it's odd that you mentioned Cher, because I remember thought back to the movie Mask, where the person in Mask is trying to explain to the girl that's blind what clouds are like, and things like that. So I was trying to explain to my counterpart about the AIM-9 coolant system, argon, and how that worked, and taking the hand and rubbing it on, and then taking an ice cube and so I was so mad afterwards because I said, you didn't provide me with an interpreter like you promised. And they said, that's exactly why we did. We wanted you to focus on communication, not the process, not the actual process.
Interesting.
And when I sat back when it was over with, I said, if you led with that might have been an important aspect to know. So yeah, it's communication is a key. So from today forward, do either of you have future plans to assist veterans in the fight for veterans benefits or advocacy for any projects that you hold dear? Not necessarily veteran projects, but just anything that you like to.
I'm an advocate for animals. I volunteer at the shelter, and so my big thing is adopt, don't buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we both try to be involved in charities. I'm president of one of the Rotary clubs in Montgomery, as well
I'm
as
in Kiwanis.
Yeah, she's heavily, in fact, she had Kiwanis luncheon today, so we try to stay involved in civic clubs, and veteran support are a big part of those civic clubs, and of course we stay active in veteran service organizations. In just a few days we're going to participate in a Wreaths Across America event, and we try to be strong advocates for veterans and veteran issues. Sometimes you have to be a little courageous and speak up for veterans, because sometimes folks aren't. We need to be our own advocates sometimes for some tough issues, and there are some tough issues that are coming up in the state of Alabama, at the federal level. Anytime there's a change of administrations, you're going to have a new Secretary of Veterans Affairs coming in, and it's always a little interesting to see which direction we're going to go in, and you hope that the veteran community can help influence. And more importantly, I hope that people would listen to the concerns of veterans, because sometimes I think they don't.
Yeah.
I agree.
I get a little dismayed with elected officials sometimes when they don't even seem interested in hearing from veterans. That hurts a little bit, and I don't think it's helpful to the country.
When they don't understand that they could not even be in the position that they're holding if it were not for veterans protecting our Constitution and our way of life, and so I get aggravated with the short-sightedness of the way they look at things as well. So with ending here, what legacy do you hope that you can leave for veteran couples, or future generations? What would you, when the time comes to an end and we're gathered around saying, in this person's life, look what they, not necessarily what they did, but remembering who they were, and how they lived their life. What would you like to see or hope that people would remember?
Well, we talked about this earlier today, and I don't mean to sound morbid, but you get to an age where some of your friends have passed away, and you think about, what will my legacy be? I hope when I'm gone, people will look at that veteran headstone, and they'll see my name and rank and where I served, and every once in a while somebody will come visit and say, I remember him, he was a good guy, and he did some good things in his life. I think that's what most people want when they're gone, that people will remember them in a good light, and that they made a difference in this world.
Yeah. Made a difference in the lives of all our fellow veterans.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we'll be jointly buried, and perhaps in a veteran cemetery with a joint headstone, and they'll see both of our military service on there, and hopefully friends and family will remember that we both served and tried to help fellow veterans. I think that's important.
And that's a long time from now. There's a lot that can be, that can and will be done,
Yeah, absolutely.
before those dashes, in our dates. Just anything else that you'd like to elaborate on, talk about, anything we didn't cover that,
Let me make a pitch, and I make this pitch to veterans all the time. You need to get involved and get active, and what better way than to join an organization like VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. And I'm telling you, when I go to our VFW meetings, I walk away with such a great feeling, just spending time with fellow veterans and hearing their stories. Sometimes listening to their challenges and thinking, how can we work together to help with that? But veterans should consider that. I know a lot of people that get out of the military and think, I'm done with that. I don't want anything to do with the military anymore. I did my time, I'm proud of it, but it's time to move on. But it's helpful, and I think a lot of people would enjoy getting involved in something like VFW and spending time with fellow veterans and sharing stories. So I'm just gonna make that pitch. Consider it. If you know of a veteran, invite them to a VFW meeting. We get visitors all the time, and usually they're surprised when they show up. We have good camaraderie and good information for their benefit as well.
Absolutely, and not just, I mean, of course, I'm with VFW,
Yeah,
and I are in
we're biased.
VFW, so we're a little bit biased. But I have to say, American Legion has some very, very good commercials that are running on social media and all right now, dealing with a lot of issues. There was one that just comes to mind where it's female veteran and a male veteran, and they're kind of badgering each other back and forth. And so the female veteran, the male was in the Navy. And she says, "Oh yeah, it took a lot for you to walk around on a ship punching buttons over here."
Service stereotypes. Yeah, I'm in the American Legion also. I'm in Disabled American Veterans, all wonderful organizations, and others, the Air and Space Force Association. They're all great organizations. American Legion has this campaign called Be the One, and you think about that. You could be the one veteran that makes a difference in someone else's life. That's valuable, and we hear messages like that in VFW all the time. You know, be there for your buddy, be a battle buddy, and check on it.
It's not, be in several different organizations. Everyone has its flavor.
Yep.
Everyone has a different draw. I say you and I, we're both in VFW, but we're in American Legion also, and we're in different American Legion posts.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those posts has a different flavor.
Definitely.
I love going. My wife is a member of another. She's in the auxiliary, and she is a member of the post in Prattville. I enjoy going to their functions, and so it's just because you're a member of one post, you can visit other posts as well, and meet as many people as you can come across. Some you may wish you never met, but the majority will be someone you can connect with.
Yeah. And Robert, I'm going to salute you. We did something recently. You had a joint Christmas party, VFW and an American Legion post, and that was so great. And the conversations, and by the end, we were talking about joint projects and working together on veterans issues. And I thought, that's what needs to happen.
Absolutely. Well, I love the process. I love the group. I love being involved with our veterans.
It shows.
And I can't thank you enough and Lisa enough for coming in and enlightening us to your life and your process of going through the military and where you are today. And we look forward to great things from both of you.
Absolutely.
And so we just we'll continue to watch the news, and hopefully we see some advancement with opportunities for veterans in Alabama and getting the recognition that they need.